sleeves widened steadily from knuckles to shoulder. True, it was a dressing gown which had lost its pristine freshness, and had, in places, exchanged its natural original sheen for one acquired by hard wear. Yet still it retained both the clarity of its oriental coloring and the soundness of its texture. In Oblomov's eyes, it was a garment possessed of a myriad invaluable qualities, for it was so soft and pliable that when wearing it, the body was unaware of its presence, and like an obedient slave, it answered even to the slightest movement. Neither waistcoat nor cravat did Oblomov wear when indoors, since he loved freedom and space. For the same reason his slippers were long, soft, and broad, to the end that whenever he lowered his legs from the bed to the floor without looking at what he was doing, his feet might fit into the slippers at once. With Oblomov, lying in bed was neither a necessity, as in the case of an invalid or of a man who stands badly in need of sleep, nor an accident, as in the case of a man who is feeling worn out, nor a gratification, as in the case of a man who is purely lazy. Rather, it represented his normal condition. Whenever he was at home, and almost always he was at home, he would spend his time in lying on his back. Likewise, he used but the one room, which was combined to serve both as bedroom, as study, and as reception room, in which we have just discovered him. True, 2 other rooms lay at his disposal, but seldom did he look into them, save on mornings, which did not comprise by any means every morning, when his old valet happened to be sweeping out the study. The furniture in them stood perennially covered over, and never were the blinds drawn up. At first sight, the room in which Oblomov was lying was a well-fitted one. In it there stood a writing table of redwood, a couple of sofas, upholstered in some silken material, and a handsome screen that was embroidered with birds and fruits unknown to nature. Also the room contained silken curtains, a few mats, some pictures, bronzes, and pieces of china, and a multitude of other pretty trifles. Yet even the most cursory glance from the experienced eye of a man of taste would have detected no more than a tendency to observe les convenances while escaping their actual observance. Without doubt, that was all that Oblomov had thought of when furnishing his study. Taste of a really refined nature would never have remained satisfied with such ponderous, ungainly redwood chairs, with such rickety whatnots. Moreover, the back of one of the sofas had sagged, and here and there the wood had come away from the glue. Much the same thing was to be seen in the case of the pictures, the vases, and certain other trifles of the apartment. Nevertheless, its master was accustomed to regard its appurtenances with the cold, detached eye of one who would ask, "Who has dared to bring this stuff here?" The same indifference on his part, added to perhaps an even greater indifference on the part of his servant, Zakhar, caused the study, when contemplated with attention, to strike the beholder with an impression of all prevailing carelessness and neglect. On the walls and around the pictures there hung cobwebs coated with dust. The mirrors, instead of reflecting, would more usefully have served as tablets for recording memoranda. Every mat was freely spotted with stains. On the sofa there lay a forgotten towel, and on the table, as on most mornings, a plate, a salt cellar, a half-eaten crust of bread, and some scattered crumbs, all of which had failed to be cleared away after last night's supper. Indeed, were it not for the plate, for a recently smoked pipe that was propped against the bed, and for the recumbent form of Oblomov himself, one might have imagined that the place contained not a single living soul, so dusty and discolored did everything look, and so lacking were any active traces of the presence of a human being. True, on the whatnots there were 2 or 3 open books, while a newspaper was tossing about, and the bureau bore on its top an inkstand and a few pens, but the pages at which the books were lying open were covered with dust and beginning to turn yellow, thus proving that they had long been tossed aside. The date of the newspaper